So I just had dinner with a friend and we got deep into a conversation, just talking about the world right now, politics, what's happening, what's going on around us, and what the future looks like. And it got pretty heavy pretty quickly. But something he said was so profound to me, and I never saw it in this lens, and I wanted to share it because that's something that I'm going to hold on to now, and I'm going to tap into whenever I have those moments of fear or doubt or just spiraling, wondering what we're headed into, wondering what the world will even look like in the next few years. And what he shared was this idea of whenever there's transformational change happening, it's almost like that saying where you take one step back to take two steps forward. But the idea is that whenever there's transformational change, something that is very, very significant, we almost as people have to shrink down. And not just we, but we meaning the world conceptually have to shrink down. So there's a shrinkage that happens, and that feels in the moment very much like we're taking a step back. It feels like progress is being taken away. It feels like progress that was made is now being backtracked on because there's so much chaos in that moment where things just feel like it's shrinking. And then all of a sudden, there will be an explosion and there will be a transformation that catapults us into a different realm. Now, stay with me. I'm not talking about sci-fi realm or anything like that. When I say realm, I mean it will catapult us into this new way of thinking or completely shifting the way our society operates and thinks. And that type of profound transformation and shift at scale and in masses like that across the world, across many different types of people and many different groups intersectionally, that can only take place when that shrinkage and when that initial kind of, call it limbo period, whatever you want to call it, where it feels very much like we're backtracking, that has to take place. And that usually takes place because there's so much chaos building up. So it's almost like a spring. Spring, you squeeze it down and it gets pushed down and then it catapults up and it shoots up and bolts up. That's what is possibly happening with the world. And that's a very positive way of looking at what the future could look like, because maybe we're going through our shrinkage right now. Maybe we are just going through that time period where we are taking some steps back in terms of progress. It feels that way for sure. We look around and it just, things are being undone. Progress is being unraveled. And I think that's us in this spring being squeezed down. And when it releases, the moment that it releases, that is when profound change will happen. And that is when long-lasting, impactful progress will sustain. And that will become our new norm. That was such a clear and very, very interesting and positive lens and perspective during that conversation. And it's, who knows if that's true, but I think it's a healthy way of looking at things versus spiraling and just getting into this very negative cyclone and just doom scrolling every day, right? So if you are in those moments of spiraling and you find yourself just feeling that sense of doubt or feeling that gut-wrenching feeling in your stomach, please just pause and remember that spring. We might be squeezed down right now and we might be shrinking, and it might very much feel, look, and seem that way. The question is, when is that going to release? because that release has to happen at some point. And it could be tomorrow, it could be next year, it could be 2 years from now, who knows? But we've been kind of in this shrinkage period for a while now. I would say throughout COVID, there's been so much massive evolution and backtracking, and then some progress, backtracking and progress. But I feel like there's definitely this big catapult, spring forward kind of progress that is coming our way. And right now, we're just going through that motion of being in that state where we're just being squeezed and being shrunken down so that we, as humanity, collectively can get to a place where we are just further evolved, and our concepts and our ways of communicating with one another and our ways of just being humans and being kind to one another just ends up being on a different level through that transformation after the spring is released. You get what I'm saying? Does that make any sense to you? Or I didn't even drink anything, so I'm not drunk, but it makes sense to me. So if it does to you also, let's keep this analogy in our minds so that we can continue to make the world a safer, kinder, and more empathetic place for us to live.